And, that progression has continued to where now I am a sculptor.
How did that transition go from the discipline of these forms to being attracted to the figure? Was there a particular point? Was there a particular project where you kind of dipped your toe in the water and figured out that this is what's been missing in my life?
Yeah, there were a couple things. One is I made these very complex suspended black and white sculptures, complex to make and lay out. And I have to say that at the end of it, I was not surprising myself. I was starting to feel like, man, this is a real mountain to climb to make each one of these. And there was not enough buzz at the end of that process, simply. And I was looking for something else that was actually more difficult, but that would surprise me. And at the same time, I remember I was milling a striped block on the Bridgeport milling machine that I built, and the cutter bit into it and made curved lines. A simple thing.
Hmm.
Imagine like a slice out of this kind of looking like a Bridget Riley painting or
Hmm.
some op art thing, Vasarely or something. But they were swirling and, as a midpoint in making this thing. And I'm going, curved surface. What would be the most complex curved surface to deal with? And I thought the human head. And I had no figurative training, etc. And I just thought, there's a hell of an endeavor. Let's think about doing that. And long process led to me doing 50, 60 portrait sculptures in stone. But something else happened at the same time is the advance in technology. I was given my first computer by Apple in 1988 under this
Wow.
program they called Apple Seed. Luckily, I barely caught the digital wave. I was 33 at that time, and they gave them to artists just to see what in the hell we do with them. And I was then one of the earliest adopters of 3D scanning. At that time, was only available in the military and Hollywood. My first figurative sculpture was actually a self-portrait where I went to LA special effects area on the valley and got myself 3D scanned through this kind of cumbersome early iteration of that machine, that equipment. And I felt like I could do figurative sculpture in a new analytic way and bypass all that traditional Bernini-esque École des Beaux-Arts, Jerome figure modeling training, making the écorché figures and all of that. And then as a result, my work would be different. It wouldn't be traditional figurative stone sculpture by employing all the advances in digital technology.
To help me understand, so this is in the 90s, you're able to get a 3D scan. Did they have the type of robotic milling that you use today back then, or how were you using that 3D scan? Because I feel like, at some point, technologies converged around you.
Through a revolution there, including 3D printing now, which is a big part of the at least midpoint of making my work. Yeah, there were kind of crude 3D mills, CNC, computer numerically controlled mills available. They were kind of adaptations originally of non CNC milling machines that had been used for a long time. There was also duplicating machines. Kind of imagine when you have a key made, how they
Mm-hmm.
drag a little pointer across the little teeth of your key and it mills another one next to you. Imagine that in 3D space. That's the kind of tools that are available. I made one, a 3D duplicator machine.
Wow.
And it was just like progressively, we get to the point now where I'm using anthropomorphic robots like the ones you see in car factories. And the scanning now, you used to have to sit in a chair and hold a pose for 18 seconds while the scanner swung around you. It was kind of like the old daguerreotypes. yielded these kind of frozen poses. And now you can have a portrait sculpture victim sit in an array of 240 high-end 3D, digital SLRs, and have those 240 cameras fire simultaneously like you're having your portrait taken. I can be talking to the person. We can snap multiple shots and get these beautiful 3D images with no pain to the portrait sculpture victim. Great resolution. I used to, for all my early portrait sculptures, had to life cast everybody, which was hard on the sitters. Your face covered with alginate and plaster, and I did that, and then I would make a plaster positive and scan it. Because the scanning technology really wasn't so good for scanning a live human. Now that's easy. Now the scanners that I scan historical sculptures with are handheld, super fast. I just was in Florence, Italy, up on scaffold scanning Donatello's Judas and Holofernes.
Oh, wow.
And we could do the whole thing in 3 hours. But boom, done. Even as far back as 2011, I scanned St-Bartholomew Flate in the Duomo in Milano and Michelangelo's Pietà Rondanini, and that would take like 3 days per sculpture, with painstakingly taking a series of 3D scans and then having the software piece them together. Now you have this handheld thing, you just kind of wipe figuratively over the surface of the sculpture. You don't touch it, but you just kind of almost color it in, and there it is as a 3D object. So it's made everything easier and cheaper. The original scanners, the really good ones, were $200,000. Now for this state-of-the-art thing, it's $30,000. For same thing with 3D printers, everything has gotten more accessible. Although I would have to say, for young artists, whenever I see anybody working in stone, and I really don't know the world of traditional stone sculpting. I never was trained that way. I've never wielded a hammer and chisel in my life. I'm a very good maker of things. Again, I taught myself to be a cabinet maker and work with all kinds of materials and have a beautiful shop, but I never did that traditional Michelangelo-esque stone sculpting. And whenever I see somebody hacking away at a block of stone, I go, why? And the number one reason why for young artists is it's super pricey to use robots. Six-figure bills, and they can't do it. So they're basically undervaluing their own labor and just hacking away on blocks of stone for no reason, but except that they can't afford to do it another way.
That brings up a question I've always had about sculptors in the world of art, and that is economic complexities of being a large-scale sculptor. You almost have to have a customer ahead of time, because building a large-scale sculpture on spec, someone's taking on a great deal of risk, right?
Yes.
And so can you tell me kind of how you have navigated that over the years?
Well, because I worked relatively small human head size when I was doing figurative work, and then my work before that, normal kind of painting costs, not so crazy on the materials side. Even when I got into stone, I was working small, and so I purposely did all my portraits on spec. I wanted to have the freedom to do what I wanted to do. I wasn't meeting a client's expectations, and luckily was able to show these things as independent portrait heads, the same way we would go to the Capitol and museums in Rome and look at, anonymous Roman types as well as emperors and so on. And I like that, but you're right. Once you start getting into larger works, and that felt like something I really wanted to do. Commissions are really helpful, although I'm crazy enough that I have a couple pieces downstairs in the big studio fabrication hall right now, which are close to 7 figures to fabrication bills that I have risk myself. I'm maybe addicted to risk. I don't play cards. Being raised a fundamentalist Christian, I don't gamble. I walk away from games. I think it's because my whole life as an artist has been one big risk. I don't want to play at games on the side. So, yeah, it's a huge issue. I did a portrait of Prince Albert of Monaco, and I was commissioned to do his wife, Princess Charlene, and those were realized in solid gold. I think the Prince's has 26 pounds of gold. In that case, yeah, I had to have a commission to work with that crazy, amount of money just on material alone. To make it. So that's been fun. I would have never gotten to do that, to work in solid gold without the commission.
It makes me curious because, gold is incredibly dense, and I'm just trying to think, is this wind up being the size of a softball, or is it hollow in terms of like your Pope John Paul II in terms of the honeycomb of that construction? How big are these portraits?
They're life size, like a human head.
Oh, wow.
The conceptual idea was that I wanted to work from the core out. With stone, you're working on the surface. It's been an issue that I've been thinking about more and more. Is there's always a mass at the core of stone sculpture, partly because of the delicacy of the material. Have you ever had anything stretching out, like an arm or a foot or something? They would always incorporate a prop into the stone. Michelangelo's David has a tree growing up its back of its leg. You'd have Roman equestrian sculptures with a tree in the belly of the horse. The guy would be gesturing out, and you'd have kind of a spear or another prop coming out of his body. It's a difficult material to make an airy, arabesque-like form with, technically. And I've been doing it actually with stone too, but I thought when I'm working with metal, I can do that. I'm working additively, first of all. I'm not hacking away at a mass to get down to the figure. The classic division of sculpture is, Rodin being the model of the additive built-up forms versus Michelangelo hacking away and getting down to the form. These portraits I did of the Prince and Princess were the first ones that I did additively. So they were 3D printed in wax, the elements. And it's not, if it was solid gold at the size of a human head, it would be, crazy heavy. But I wanted you to be able to see all the way through to the core. There are symbolic elements in there, the shield of Monaco and the knights, and the element that suffuses the whole head is seaweed because of Prince Albert's support of ocean conservation and study. His family supported Jacques Cousteau, etc. And so, he's a prince, a blingy guy, but he has a very good environmental record, which I'm all over. My family are all a bunch of environmentalists, including me. So, I had an opportunity to kind of bring a lot of things together there. But in that case, I work with the Italian jewelry company Damiani on those portraits. I do a lot of the work. We do all the digital sculpting here at my studio, and then I'm back and forth a lot to Italy. I'm in Italy 5 to 6 times a year working on various aspects of all of my artworks.
Did I understand right that you have your main studio in Brooklyn, but there's another studio that works on larger pieces in Italy? Did I understand that right?
Well, I work with outside fabricators.
I see.
And so, I have one work here, I think has 10 different outside fabricators on it. And we kind of act like the clearinghouse, the control of all of that. And we never have a piece fabricated by anybody and it's delivered to the gallery, and here's my finished artwork. We first of all, on all stonework, we do all the handwork here. the next part of what I'm going to say is I'm meaning to cast no aspersions on the work of my contemporaries, several of whom are my friends and whose work I respect. But it's probably not so well known that there is one room in Carrara, Italy, a large fabrication room, where you can see the stoneworks of most of the international